The mare's hooves thundered across the desert hardpan like rolling thunder, and Olivia Norton leaned low over the animal's neck, feeling the scorching Arizona wind whip tears from her eyes as she pushed the chestnut beauty harder than she ever had before. It was 1882, and the spring racing fair in Holbrook had drawn cowboys and gamblers from three territories, all of them convinced that no woman could possibly outride the fastest men in the Southwest. They were about to learn otherwise. Olivia had grown up on horseback, practically born in the saddle on her father's ranch outside of town. Her mother had died when she was just 8 years old, and her father, Thomas Norton, had raised her the only way he knew how, teaching her to rope and ride and shoot as well as any son might have learned. She was 22 now, with sun-darkened skin and honey-colored hair she kept braided down her back, and she had spent the last 3 months training this mare, a Mustang mix named Copper, for this very moment. The qualifying races had been running since dawn, and the sun now hung high and merciless over the Arizona desert. Olivia had won every heat she had entered, leaving seasoned riders eating her dust on the straightaway course that ran along the dried riverbed east of town. The men had laughed at first, making jokes about letting the lady have her fun before the real racing started. They were not laughing anymore. She crossed the finish line a full 3 lengths ahead of Buck Morrison, a grizzled ranch hand from Show Low who had won the fair 2 years running. The crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and angry shouts, depending on where they had placed their bets. Olivia pulled Copper to a gradual stop, patting the mare's sweat-dampened neck and murmuring words of praise. Her own heart hammered in her chest, but she kept her face composed as she turned the horse back toward the starting area. That was when she first noticed him watching her. He stood apart from the other men, leaning against the split-rail fence that enclosed the racing grounds, his arms crossed over his chest, and his hat pulled low against the sun. Even from a distance, she could see the intensity of his gaze, the way he studied her and Copper with the focus of someone calculating odds. He was tall and lean, with the weathered look of a man who spent his life outdoors, and something about the set of his shoulders suggested both strength and a bone-deep weariness. Olivia dismounted and led Copper toward the water troughs, trying to ignore the muttering of the men she passed. Some of them were congratulatory, tipping their hats with grudging respect, but others glared at her with open hostility. Women were not supposed to compete in the races, not officially, but there was no written rule against it either. The fair organizers had been too surprised by her entry to turn her away, and now she had won enough heats to qualify for the championship race that afternoon. Miss Norton. She turned to find the tall stranger approaching, and up close she could see he was perhaps 26 or 27, with sharp blue eyes and a day's worth of dark stubble along his jaw. His clothes were clean but worn, the shirt and vest of a working cowboy, and he moved with the easy grace of someone comfortable in his own skin. Yes? She kept her tone neutral, unsure if he was another sore loser come to complain. Name's Carter Vaughn. He touched the brim of his hat. That was some fine riding. Your mare's got good blood in her. Thank you. Olivia relaxed slightly at the genuine respect in his voice. She's the best horse I have ever trained. I can see that. Carter glanced back at the track, then returned his attention to her. I hear you are planning to run in the championship. I am. The purse is $500. I know. He was quiet for a moment, and she could see him wrestling with something, some decision that weighed heavily on him. Finally, he said, I would like to place a bet on you to win. Olivia raised her eyebrows. You do not even know me, Mr. Vaughn. For all you know, I might have just gotten lucky in the heats. Luck does not give a horse that kind of speed, and luck does not keep a rider balanced like you were on that last turn. He met her eyes steadily. I know horses, Miss Norton, and I know riders. You are the real thing. There was something in his voice, an urgency that went beyond simple gambling. Olivia studied him more carefully, noting the fine quality of his boots, despite their wear, the way his hands showed calluses from years of rope work. This was not some drifter looking for a quick score. What are you really asking me, Mr. Vaughn? Carter glanced around, making sure no one was standing close enough to overhear. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. I am asking if you are going to win that championship race, because I need to know if I should bet everything I have on you. Everything. Everything. The word came out rough, almost painful. I lost my ranch 3 months ago in a poker game. Man who won it is here today, watching the races, and he is a gambling man. If I can win enough, I can buy it back from him. He told me he would sell if I could come up with $2,000. Olivia's breath caught. $2,000 was a fortune, the kind of money most cowboys did not see in 5 years of hard work. And you think you can turn your stake into that much? If you win, the odds are running 20 to 1 against you right now. Most men still think you cannot beat them when it really counts. A muscle worked in his jaw. I have $200. It's every cent I have managed to save working odd jobs these past months. If I put it all on you and you win, I will have $4,000, enough to buy back my land and have something left over to start rebuilding. The weight of his desperation settled over Olivia like a heavy blanket. This man was willing to risk everything on her ability to win one race. That is a lot of faith to put in a stranger. Maybe. Carter's eyes never left hers. But I watched you ride, Miss Norton. I saw the way you handle that mare, the way you read the track. You are not doing this for fun. You are doing this because you need to win just as badly as I do. He was right, though Olivia was not sure how he had guessed. Her father had taken ill over the winter, some lung sickness that left him weak and struggling for breath. The doctor bills had eaten through their savings, and they were 3 months behind on the bank loan that kept their small ranch running. The $500 purse would not solve all their problems, but it would buy them enough time to get through the summer, to sell some cattle at decent prices instead of taking whatever desperate offer came along. What makes you think the man who won your ranch will actually sell it back? Olivia asked. Even if you have the money? Because Marcus Daltrey is a lot of things, but he is a businessman first. Carter's voice hardened when he said the name. He does not want to run a cattle ranch. He wanted the property to settle a debt, nothing more. If I show up with cash money, he will take it. Olivia looked past him at the racing grounds, where men were already gathering for the afternoon events. In a few hours, she would be lining up against the fastest riders in the territory, men who had been training their entire lives for races like this, men who would not take kindly to losing to a woman. But she thought of her father, struggling to breathe in his sickbed back home. She thought of Copper, who could run like the wind when Olivia asked her to. She thought of this stranger, Carter Vaughn, who was willing to gamble his entire future on her skill. I am going to win, she said quietly. And she saw something flare in Carter's eyes, hope, maybe, or recognition. But if you are going to bet everything on me, you should know that some of those men out there are not going to be happy when I beat them. They might try to cause trouble. Let them try. Carter's hand moved unconsciously to the revolver at his hip. I will be watching. The afternoon sun beat down without mercy as the competitors gathered for the championship race. There were 8 riders in total, including Olivia, and the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Buck Morrison was there, still sour about losing his qualifying heat, and so was a Mexican vaquero named Esteban Rodriguez, who had a reputation for racing dirty. The others were local cowboys and ranch hands, all of them eager for the prize money and the bragging rights that came with winning the Holbrook Spring Fair. The course was longer for the championship, a 3-mile run that would take them east along the riverbed, around a stand of cottonwood trees, and back to the starting line. It was rough terrain, with loose sand and hidden rocks that could trip up a horse if the rider was not careful. Olivia had walked the course twice that morning, memorizing every turn and dip. She checked Copper's saddle one last time, making sure the cinch was tight and the stirrups were adjusted properly. The mare sensed her nervous energy and danced sideways, eager to run. Olivia stroked the chestnut neck, breathing deep to calm herself. You can do this, girl, she whispered. Just like we practiced. Riders, mount up. The call came from Judge Harmon, who was overseeing the race from his position at the finish line. Olivia swung into the saddle, settling her weight and gathering the reins. On either side of her, the other riders were doing the same, their horses jostling for position. She could feel the hostility radiating from some of them, but she kept her eyes forward, focused on the track ahead. In the crowd, she caught a glimpse of Carter Vaughn standing near the betting post, his jaw set and his eyes locked on her. He had already placed his bet, she knew. Everything he owned was riding on her ability to win this race. The starter raised his pistol. The crowd fell silent. Even the horses seemed to hold their breath. The gun fired, and Copper leaped forward like she had been shot from a cannon. The first 100 yards were chaos. 8 horses bunched together as their riders fought for position. Olivia kept Copper to the outside, not wanting to get boxed in by the pack. Dust rose in choking clouds, and she could hear the thunder of hooves and the shouts of the men around her. Someone tried to cut in front of her, but she guided Copper around them with a slight pressure of her knees. By the time they reached the half-mile mark, the pack had started to spread out. 3 riders had pulled ahead, including Esteban Rodriguez on his big black stallion. Olivia held Copper back slightly, letting the mare settle into a sustainable pace. 3 miles was a long race, and she knew better than to burn out early. They followed the curve of the dried riverbed, the sand here loose and treacherous. One of the horses stumbled, nearly throwing its rider, and fell back from the leading group. Olivia guided Copper to the firmer ground, near the edge of the course, where the footing was better. The mare responded beautifully, her strides long and powerful. As they approached the cottonwood grove that marked the halfway point, Esteban made his move. He urged his stallion faster, pulling away from the other leaders. Olivia could see his strategy clearly. He wanted to establish a commanding lead now, to break the spirits of the other riders before the final stretch. But Olivia had raced against men like him before. She knew that pushing too hard too early would cost him when it mattered most. She kept Copper at the same steady pace, trusting the mare's endurance. Around the cottonwoods they went, and now they were heading back toward town. The sun was in their eyes, making it hard to see the track ahead, but Olivia knew the route by heart. She let Copper have more rein, and the mare responded by lengthening her stride. They began to close the gap on the leaders. 2 miles gone, 1 to go. Esteban was starting to fade. His stallion had given everything in that burst of speed, and now the animal was tiring. Olivia guided Copper past him, and she heard the vaquero curse in Spanish as she went by. 2 other riders were still ahead of her, but the distance between them was shrinking with every stride. The crowd noise grew louder as they approached the final quarter-mile. Olivia could see the finish line now, could see the people lining the fences and waving their hats. Her thighs burned with the effort of maintaining her position, and sweat stung her eyes, but she focused on the riders ahead of her. One was Buck Morrison. The other was a young cowboy she did not know, barely out of his teens, on a paint horse that was clearly bred for speed. They were neck and neck, both of them whipping their horses in a desperate bid for victory. Olivia leaned low over Copper's neck. "Now, girl," she said, and she felt the mare gather herself for one final surge. Copper accelerated like she had been holding back the entire race, like everything before this moment had just been warm-up. The chestnut mare seemed to fly across the sand, her hooves barely touching the ground. Olivia felt the wind tear at her braid, felt the incredible power of the animal beneath her, and suddenly they were passing the paint horse, passing Buck Morrison, pulling ahead as if the other riders were standing still. They crossed the finish line 3 lengths ahead of the nearest competitor, and the crowd erupted in a roar that shook the desert air. Olivia pulled Copper to a gradual stop, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. She had done it. She had actually done it. The mare was breathing hard but steady, her coat dark with sweat. Olivia dismounted on shaking legs and threw her arms around Copper's neck, overwhelmed with relief and joy and disbelief. Around her, people were shouting and laughing and arguing, depending on how they had bet. Then Carter was there, pushing through the crowd, and the look on his face made Olivia's breath catch. It was pure, unfiltered joy, the kind of expression that comes when a man has been given back everything he thought he had lost. He stopped just short of her, as if suddenly remembering they were strangers, but his eyes were bright. "You did it," he said, and his voice was rough with emotion. "By God, Miss Norton, you did it." "We did it," Olivia corrected, still catching her breath. "Copper did all the hard work." "No," Carter shook his head. "I have seen a lot of riders, and none of them could have run that race the way you did. You knew exactly when to hold back and when to push. That was pure skill." Before Olivia could respond, Judge Harmon was calling for her to come collect her winnings. She led Copper through the crowd, acutely aware of the stares and mutters that followed her. Some of the men looked impressed, even respectful, but others radiated anger and resentment. She tried to ignore them. Judge Harmon was an older man with a thick white mustache and kind eyes. He counted out $500 in gold coins and paper notes, placing them in a leather pouch that he handed to Olivia with a formal nod. "Congratulations, Miss Norton. That was the finest piece of riding this fair has seen in 10 years. "Thank you, sir." As she turned away from the judge's table, a hand grabbed her arm. She spun to find Buck Morrison glaring at her, his face red with anger and humiliation. "You cheated," he said loudly, making sure others could hear. "Ain't no way a woman beats me fair and square. You must have done something to my horse, put something in the water to slow him down." Olivia jerked her arm free, anger flaring hot in her chest. "I won because I am a better rider than you, Mr. Morrison. Accept it with grace." "Grace?" Buck stepped closer, and Olivia could smell the whiskey on his breath. "You got no business being in this race in the first place. This is a man's competition, and you made a fool of all of us. The only fool here is the one who cannot admit when he has been beaten." The voice came from behind Olivia, cold and level, and she turned to see Carter Vaughn moving to stand beside her. His hand rested casually on his gun belt, not quite threatening but making his intentions clear. Buck's eyes narrowed. "This ain't your business, stranger." "I just won $4,000 betting on Miss Norton," Carter said. "That makes it very much my business. Now I suggest you walk away before you say something you will regret." For a moment, Olivia thought Buck might actually throw a punch, but then Esteban Rodriguez appeared, placing himself between the two men. "Enough," the vaquero said. "The lady won fair. I was watching, and she rode better than any of us. To say otherwise is to dishonor yourself, Morrison." Buck looked like he wanted to argue, but the crowd was watching now, and even his friends were shaking their heads. Finally, he spat in the dust and stalked away, muttering curses under his breath. Olivia released a breath she had not realized she was holding. "Thank you," she said to both men. Esteban tipped his hat. "De nada. You earned that victory, señorita. Your horse, she is magnificent." After he left, Olivia turned to Carter. "You did not have to step in like that." "Yes, I did." Carter's expression was serious. "You won me back my life today, Miss Norton. The least I can do is make sure you are treated with respect." The words settled something warm in Olivia's chest, a feeling she could not quite name. She looked at this man, this stranger, who had put all his faith in her, and felt a connection forming that went beyond simple gratitude. "I need to go collect your winnings from the betting post," Carter said. "And then I need to find Marcus Daltrey and negotiate the purchase of my ranch. But after that, Miss Norton, I would be honored if you would let me buy you dinner. It is the least I can do to say thank you." Olivia knew she should say no. She should collect her winnings, ride home to her father, and put this whole day behind her. But when she looked at Carter Vaughn, she saw something in his eyes that made her want to say yes, something that suggested this was only the beginning of a much longer story. "Dinner sounds nice," she heard herself say. "But first I need to take care of Copper. She deserves the best rub-down and feed I can give her." "Of course." Carter's smile was genuine and warm, transforming his whole face. "I will meet you at the hotel in 2 hours." 2 hours, Olivia agreed. She watched him walk away toward the betting post, his stride confident now in a way it had not been before. Then she led Copper to the stables, her mind spinning with everything that had just happened. She had come to this fair desperate to win money for her father's medical bills. She had not expected to help a stranger win back his ranch. She certainly had not expected to feel this sudden, undeniable attraction to a cowboy she had only just met. At the stables, she paid extra for the best stall and the finest feed, making sure Copper was properly cooled down and comfortable. The mare nickered softly, clearly pleased with herself, and Olivia could not help but smile. "You did good today, girl," she murmured, running her hands over the horse's legs to check for any injuries or swelling. Everything felt solid and sound. "Real good." A shadow fell across the stall entrance, and Olivia looked up to see a well-dressed man standing there. He was probably in his mid-40s, with slicked back hair and a diamond stick pin in his cravat. Everything about him screamed money and power. "Miss Norton, I presume?" His voice was smooth, cultured. "Allow me to introduce myself, Marcus Daltrey." Olivia straightened slowly, recognizing the name from her conversation with Carter. This was the man who had won Carter's ranch, the man who now held Carter's future in his hands. "Mr. Daltrey, I wanted to congratulate you on your victory. Quite impressive." He stepped into the stall uninvited, looking Copper over with an appraising eye. "This is a fine animal. I would be interested in purchasing her if you are willing to sell." "She is not for sale." "Everything is for sale at the right price, Miss Norton. I would be willing to pay, say, $1,000 for her. That is twice what you won in the race." Olivia's hands clenched into fists. "I said she is not for sale." Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "A pity. You know, I heard that Carter Vaughn placed quite a substantial bet on you today. In fact, I heard he bet everything he had. I assume he has already come to you with some sob story about buying back his ranch? That is between you and him." "Indeed it is." Marcus adjusted his cufflinks, a casual gesture that somehow felt threatening. "I just want to make sure you understand the situation. Carter Vaughn lost his ranch because he was foolish enough to think he could beat me at poker. He was wrong. Now he thinks he can win it back with money he won betting on you. But life does not work that way, Miss Norton. People like Carter need to learn their place." "And what place is that?" Olivia could not keep the edge from her voice. "Beneath people like me." Marcus met her eyes coolly. "I worked my whole life to build my fortune. I did not do it by being sentimental or giving people second chances. Carter Vaughn made his choice, and now he has to live with the consequences." "So you are not going to sell him back his ranch?" "Oh, I will sell it to him for $3,000 instead of two." Marcus's smile widened at the shock that must have shown on Olivia's face. "I know he only has 2,000, even with his winnings from today. So he will come to me, desperate and hopeful, and I will tell him the price has gone up. And there is nothing he can do about it, because I own that land legally and completely." Anger burned hot in Olivia's chest. "Why would you do that? Why be so cruel?" "Because I can." Marcus turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Miss Norton, if you are thinking about giving him the money you won today to help make up the difference, you should know that I will just raise the price again. This is a lesson Carter needs to learn. Some men are born to own land, and some men are born to work it for others. The sooner he accepts that, the better off he will be." He left before Olivia could respond, his footsteps echoing on the stable floor. She stood there shaking with fury, her mind racing. How could she tell Carter that his dream of buying back his ranch was about to be crushed? How could she watch him go to Marcus with hope in his eyes, only to be humiliated and defeated? She finished tending to Copper in a daze, her earlier joy completely evaporated. By the time she made her way to the hotel, she had worked herself into a state of nervous anxiety. She found Carter waiting in the lobby, and the happiness on his face when he saw her made her heart ache. "I got the money," he said, pulling her aside to speak privately. $4,000, just like we planned. I was thinking I would give Marcus his 2,000 and use the rest to stock the ranch again, buy some cattle and horses to get started. Miss Norton, I cannot thank you enough for what you did today." "Carter." She had to force his name past the lump in her throat. I need to tell you something. Marcus Daltrey came to see me at the stables. The happiness drained from Carter's face. What did he say? Olivia told him everything, watching as his expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to a cold, hard anger she had not seen in him before. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. He is going to raise the price, Carter said finally, his voice flat. Of course he is. I should have known. Maybe we can find another way. Maybe if we both talk to him or if we got a lawyer involved. No, Carter shook his head. Marcus owns that land legally. He can sell it or not sell it for whatever price he wants. There is no law that says he has to be fair about it. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I was a fool to think this would work. You are not a fool. Olivia reached out and grabbed his hand without thinking, and she felt him tense at the contact. Marcus Daltrey is a cruel man who enjoys having power over others. That does not make you foolish for trying to fight back. Carter looked down at their joined hands, and something shifted in his expression. When he met her eyes again, there was a vulnerability there that had not been present before. I spent 3 months working every job I could find, saving every penny, he said quietly. I broke horses for ranchers who treated me like dirt because I needed the money. I worked as a trail hand, a fence mender, even cleaned out stables. All of it was for this chance to win back what I lost, and now it turns out it was all for nothing. It was not for nothing. Olivia squeezed his hand. You still have the $4,000. You could buy different land, start over somewhere else. It is not the same. Carter's jaw clenched. That ranch has been in my family for 20 years. My father built the house with his own hands. My mother is buried in the cemetery on the North Hill. Every fence post, every corral, every tree we planted, that is my history, my life. Starting over somewhere else would mean abandoning all of it. Olivia understood that feeling more than he knew. Her own family ranch was the only home she had ever known, the place where her mother's memory lived in every room and every field. The thought of losing it was unbearable. Then we will find a way to make Marcus sell, she said. There has to be something we can do. Carter studied her face, and she saw surprise there, as if he had not expected her to stand with him in this. Why do you care so much? You barely know me. It was a fair question, and Olivia did not have a good answer. She only knew that something had sparked between them today, something more than just shared circumstance. When she looked at Carter Vaughn, she saw a good man who had been dealt a bad hand, a man who was willing to fight for what mattered to him. She saw someone worth fighting for. Maybe I just do not like bullies, she said. And Marcus Daltrey is the worst kind of bully. He has money and power, and he uses them to hurt people for sport. That makes me angry. A small smile tugged at the corner of Carter's mouth. You are something else, Miss Norton. Olivia, she corrected. If we are going to take on Marcus Daltrey together, you should probably call me Olivia. Olivia. He said her name like he was testing it out, and she liked the way it sounded in his rough, warm voice. And you should call me Carter. They were still holding hands, she realized, and neither of them had made a move to let go. The hotel lobby was busy with people coming and going, but Olivia barely noticed them. Her whole awareness had narrowed to the man standing in front of her, to the calloused warmth of his palm against hers. We should get dinner, Carter said finally. Talk through our options. Maybe between the two of us we can come up with a plan. Olivia nodded, reluctantly releasing his hand. They walked to the small restaurant attached to the hotel, and Carter secured them a table in the back corner where they could talk privately. The place was crowded with people celebrating or drowning their sorrows after the day's races, but their corner felt separate from the noise and chaos. They ordered steak and potatoes, and while they waited for the food, they talked. Carter told her about his ranch, describing the house and the land with a longing that made Olivia's chest tight. He told her about losing it in that poker game, how Marcus had goaded him into betting higher and higher until Carter had put up the deed as collateral, convinced he had a winning hand. It turned out Marcus had been cheating, dealing cards from the bottom of the deck, but Carter had no way to prove it. Olivia told him about her father's illness, about the medical bills and the bank loan, and her desperate need to win that race today. She explained how she had trained Copper in secret, not wanting to give the other competitors any advance warning about what they would be facing. She talked about her mother, who had died so young, and how losing the ranch would mean losing the last piece of her. By the time the food arrived, Olivia felt like she had known Carter for years instead of hours. There was an ease between them, a natural comfort that she had never experienced with anyone else. She found herself watching the way he gestured when he talked, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the way his voice went soft when he mentioned his mother's grave. What if we went to the sheriff? Olivia suggested between bites of steak. Told him about the cheating in the poker game? Carter shook his head. Marcus owns half the businesses in this town, including the saloon where the game took place. The sheriff is not going to take my word over his, especially when I have no proof. Then what if we got proof? Found someone else who was there, someone who saw him dealing from the bottom of the deck. The only other people in that game were Marcus's friends. They are not going to testify against him. Carter pushed his food around his plate, clearly frustrated. I have thought through every angle, Olivia. There is no legal way to force him to sell at the price he originally quoted. So we need to find a non-legal way. Carter looked up sharply. What are you suggesting? I am not sure yet. Olivia leaned forward, lowering her voice. But Marcus Daltrey has to have some weakness, something he wants badly enough that he would be willing to trade for it. We just need to figure out what that is. And how do we do that? We do some digging, talk to people who know him, find out what matters to him. Olivia was warming to the idea now, her mind working through possibilities. You said he owns businesses in town. What kind of businesses? The saloon, a hotel, a freight company. He also has investments in some of the silver mines up north. Carter thought for a moment. I heard he has been trying to expand his holdings, buy up more property in the area. He seems to think Holbrook is going to grow into a major railroad hub. What if we could find a piece of property he wants more than your ranch? Something we could offer in trade? Even if such a place existed, we do not have that kind of money. Olivia bit her lip, thinking hard. They needed leverage, something that would force Marcus to negotiate in good faith. But what could two people with limited resources do against a man with Marcus's wealth and influence? The answer came to her suddenly, so obvious she almost laughed. Copper. Carter frowned. What about her? Marcus offered me $1,000 for her this afternoon. I turned him down, but what if I went back and said I would be willing to sell, but only if he also agreed to sell you the ranch at the original price? Olivia, no. Carter was already shaking his head. That horse is worth far more than $1,000. She just won the championship race. You could breed her, sell her foals for a fortune. I am not going to let you give her up for me. Why not? She is my horse. I can do what I want with her. Because it is not fair. Carter's voice was rough with emotion. You won that race to save your father's ranch. If you give Marcus your horse and he only pays you $1,000 for her, you will be short on the money you need. You will be sacrificing your home for mine. He was right, and Olivia knew it. The $500 from the race would help, but it was not enough to cover all the debts her father had accumulated. She needed more. But the thought of Carter losing his family's ranch, of Marcus Daltrey winning, made her feel sick. Maybe my father and I could take out another loan, she said. Or I could find work in town, earn the extra money we need. Doing what? There are not exactly a lot of jobs for women in Holbrook. Carter reached across the table and took her hand again, and the gesture felt natural now. Right. Listen to me. I appreciate what you are trying to do. I really do. But I will not let you destroy your life trying to fix mine. Then what do we do? Olivia heard the frustration in her own voice. Just let Marcus win? Carter was quiet for a long moment, his thumb absently rubbing across her knuckles. Finally, he said, What if we got married? Olivia's heart stopped. What? Think about it. Carter's words came faster now, as if he was working through the idea even as he spoke it. If we got married, we would combine our resources. My 4,000 plus your 500. We would have enough to buy back the ranch, even at the higher price, and we would still have money left over to pay your father's bills. Both our problems solved. Carter, we barely know each other. I know. He met her eyes, and she could see he understood how insane this sounded. But I also know that I have never met anyone like you, Olivia. You are brave and smart, and when you race, it is like watching something miraculous. And I think maybe you feel something for me too. Or am I completely wrong about that? Olivia's mouth had gone dry. She wanted to tell him he was being ridiculous, that people did not get married after knowing each other for a few hours. But the truth was, she did feel something for him, something strong and undeniable that had been building since the moment he first approached her at the racing grounds. I do feel something, she admitted quietly. But marriage is not something you rush into just to solve a financial problem. You are right, it is not. Carter squeezed her hand gently. So let me ask you this instead. Do you think you could see yourself with me? Not just as a business arrangement, but as a real partnership? Because when I look at you, Olivia, I see someone I could spend my life with. Someone I want to spend my life with. The sincerity in his voice made Olivia's heart ache. This man, this near stranger, was offering her everything. A solution to her problems, yes, but also something more. A chance at happiness, at love, at a future that did not involve struggling alone. I think I could, she said slowly, but I need more than a few hours to decide something this important. Can you give me that? Some time to think? Of course. Carter looked relieved that she had not outright refused. Take all the time you need. I will be in town for at least a few more days, dealing with Marcus and trying to figure out my options. Maybe we could spend that time getting to know each other better, and then you can make your decision. I would like that. They finished their dinner in a more relaxed atmosphere, the weight of the immediate crisis lifted slightly by the possibility of a solution. Carter told her about his plans for the ranch once he got it back, how he wanted to breed quality horses and sell them to the army forts that dotted the territory. Olivia described the landscape around her father's ranch, the red rock formations, and the way the desert bloomed after the rare summer rains. By the time they left the restaurant, the sun had set and the stars were coming out over the Arizona desert. Carter walked Olivia back to the stables where Copper was boarded, and they stood together in the cool evening air. Thank you, Carter said, for everything, for winning that race, for caring about a stranger's problems, for even considering my insane proposal. It is not that insane, Olivia said. People have gotten married for worse reasons. Carter laughed softly. That is true. He hesitated, then reached up and gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was tender, intimate, and Olivia felt heat rise in her cheeks. Can I see you tomorrow? Yes. The word came out breathier than she intended. I need to ride out to my father's ranch in the morning, check on him and give him the prize money. But I could meet you back in town in the afternoon. I will be waiting. He leaned in slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away if she wanted. Olivia did not want to. When his lips met hers, it was gentle and sweet, a kiss that asked questions instead of making demands. She leaned into it, her hand coming up to rest on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her palm. When they finally pulled apart, Carter was smiling. I should let you get home. Probably. But Olivia did not move. Not yet. She wanted to hold on to this moment a little longer, this feeling of possibility and hope. Finally, reluctantly, she stepped back. I will see you tomorrow, Carter. Tomorrow, he agreed. Olivia collected Copper from the stables and began the ride home to her father's ranch. It was about 5 miles outside of town, and the moonlight was bright enough to see the trail clearly. As she rode, her mind spun with everything that had happened. This morning, she had been a woman with one simple goal: win enough money to help her father. Now she was contemplating marrying a man she had just met, all to help him win back his family's land. It should have felt crazy. It should have felt terrifying. Instead, it felt right, in a way Olivia could not quite explain. Her father was asleep when she arrived home, which was a relief because Olivia was not sure how she would explain any of this to him yet. She put Copper in the small corral behind the house, making sure the mare had fresh water and hay. Then she went inside the modest adobe ranch house and counted out the prize money in the dim light of an oil lamp. $500. It would pay for another month of the doctor's visits, maybe two if they were careful. It would buy them a little time. But it was not enough to solve all their problems, not by a long shot. She thought about Carter's proposal. If they got married and combined their money, both of them would have a real chance at saving what mattered most to them. But was that a good enough reason to marry someone? What about love? What about knowing each other? Really knowing each other before making such a huge commitment? But then again, Olivia had felt something today when she looked at Carter, something that went beyond attraction or gratitude. When he had stood up for her against Buck Morrison, when he had shared his story about losing his ranch, when he had taken her hand and asked if she could see a future with him, in all those moments, Olivia had felt a connection deeper than anything she had experienced before. Maybe love did not always happen slowly. Maybe sometimes it hit you like a lightning strike, fast and fierce and undeniable. Olivia went to bed that night with her mind still churning, but when she finally fell asleep, she dreamed of blue eyes and gentle hands and a future that felt almost within reach. The next morning dawned clear and hot, as mornings in the Arizona desert always did. Olivia woke early and checked on her father, who was awake and sitting up in bed. Thomas Norton was only 45, but the lung sickness had aged him, leaving him thin and pale. "You are back," he said when she came into his room, and his smile was warm despite his obvious weakness. "How did the race go?" Olivia sat on the edge of his bed and told him everything, watching his expression shift from pride to amazement to concern as she described the championship race and her subsequent encounter with Carter Vaughn. "So this cowboy wants to marry you after knowing you for one day?" Thomas said when she finished. His tone was skeptical, protective the way only a father could be. "I know how it sounds, Papa, but he is a good man. I can feel it." "Feelings are not always reliable, Livy." Her father used his old nickname for her, the one he had not said in months. "Men can seem good when they want something from you." "He is not like that." Olivia tried to find the words to explain what she had sensed in Carter. "He lost everything, Papa. His family's ranch, his home, his livelihood. And instead of giving up or turning bitter, he spent 3 months working hard and saving every penny for a chance to win it back. That takes character." Thomas was quiet for a moment, studying his daughter's face. "You care about him already, don't you?" "I think I might." Olivia looked down at her hands. "Is that crazy?" "Maybe." Her father reached out and squeezed her hand. "Or maybe you are just braver than most people when it comes to following your heart. Your mother was like that. She knew she wanted to marry me after 2 weeks, and nothing her parents said could talk her out of it. And you were happy together. We were, for every moment we had." Pain flickered across Thomas's face, the old grief that never quite went away. "But we also knew we were taking a risk. Getting married that fast meant we did not really know each other yet. We had to figure it out as we went, and it was not always easy. But you think I should do it anyway?" "I think you should do what your heart tells you is right." Thomas coughed, a wet, rattling sound that made Olivia's chest tighten with worry. When he caught his breath, he continued, "If you love this man, or think you could love him, then maybe taking a risk is worth it. Just make sure you are doing it for the right reasons. Not just to save the ranch or help him save his, but because you want to build a life with him. Olivia nodded slowly. I will think about it, Papa. Really think about it. She left her father to rest and spent the morning doing chores around the ranch. There was always work to be done, fences to mend and animals to feed, and the physical labor helped clear her mind. By the time she saddled Copper again for the ride back to Holbrook, she had come to a decision. She found Carter waiting outside the hotel, exactly where he had promised to be. He stood when he saw her approaching, and the hope in his eyes made her heart skip. Olivia, he came forward to help her dismount, his hands steady on her waist. How is your father? Weak, but stable. I told him about the race and about you. She took a deep breath. I also told him about your proposal. Carter went very still. And? And I want to say yes. Olivia saw relief flood his face, but she held up a hand. But I have conditions. Anything. First, this cannot just be a business arrangement. If we are going to do this, I need to know that you are willing to try to make this a real marriage. That means caring about each other, supporting each other, building a life together. I want that, Carter said immediately. Olivia, I would not have asked you if I was not serious about it. I know we barely know each other. Oh, but I feel something for you. Something real. I feel it too. Olivia's heart was pounding. My second condition is that we take a little time before we actually get married. Maybe a week or two. Use that time to really get to know each other. Make sure this is what we both want. Carter nodded. That is fair. What else? We need to talk to Marcus Daltrey together, as a united front. Show him that we are serious about this, that we have the money and the determination to buy back your ranch. Maybe if he sees that we are not going to back down, he will agree to the original price. And if he does not, then we pay the higher price and make it work somehow. Olivia straightened her shoulders. But either way, we face him together. Carter studied her face for a long moment, and then he smiled. It was a real smile, warm and genuine and full of something that looked a lot like love. You are amazing, you know that? I am practical, Olivia corrected. There is a difference. You are both. Carter reached out and took her hand, lacing their fingers together in a gesture that was becoming familiar. So, when do you want to confront Marcus? How about right now? They found Marcus Daltrey in the saloon, sitting at a private table in the back corner and looking over some kind of ledger. He glanced up when they approached, and his expression shifted from surprise to calculated interest. Miss Norton, Mr. Vaughn, to what do I owe the pleasure? We want to discuss the sale of Carter's ranch, Olivia said, before Carter could speak. She kept her voice level, professional. We understand you raised the price to $3,000. That is correct. Marcus closed his ledger and leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying this. The property has appreciated in value since we last spoke. Appreciated in the last 12 hours? Carter's voice was hard. That is convenient. The market is unpredictable. Marcus shrugged. If you cannot afford the new price, I am sure I can find another buyer. In fact, I have had some interest from a mining company looking to expand their operations. Olivia felt Carter tense beside her, but she squeezed his hand in warning. Getting angry would only give Marcus more ammunition. We can afford the $3,000, she said calmly. But we want to make sure the deal is legitimate. We want a contract in writing, signed by both parties and witnessed by a lawyer. No more changing prices, no more games. Marcus's eyes narrowed. And why would I agree to that? Because if you do not, we will make it our mission to tell everyone in this territory about your cheating at poker. Olivia kept her voice sweet, but the threat was clear. We may not be able to prove it legally, but we can certainly damage your reputation. I imagine a lot of men would be very interested to hear that you deal cards from the bottom of the deck. For the first time, Marcus looked genuinely angry. You have no proof of that. We do not need proof. We just need people to believe it is possible. Olivia leaned forward slightly. How many business deals have you closed with a handshake and a poker game? Mr. Daltrey, how many men will start to wonder if you cheated them too? It might not ruin you, but it will certainly make your life more difficult. The silence that followed was thick and tense. Marcus stared at Olivia like he was seeing her for the first time, reassessing what kind of opponent she might be. Finally, he said, "You are bluffing. Try me." Marcus looked between them, and Olivia could almost see the calculations running through his head. Was it worth the risk? Even if most people did not believe the accusations, it would plant seeds of doubt. It would make him vulnerable. "Fine," he said at last. $3,000. Contract in writing. But I want the money by the end of the week. Or the deal is off and the price goes up to 4,000. We will have it by tomorrow, Carter said. Marcus's eyebrows rose. Tomorrow? That is fast work. We are motivated, Olivia said. Do we have a deal? We have a deal. Marcus pulled out a piece of paper and began writing, his strokes quick and angry. When he finished, he pushed it across the table. This is a basic contract. We will have a lawyer draw up the official paperwork tomorrow morning, and we can finalize the sale then. Carter read the contract carefully, and Olivia read it over his shoulder. It was straightforward, outlining the sale of the ranch property for $3,000, with the transaction to be completed within 7 days. At the bottom was a line for each of their signatures. Looks acceptable, Carter said. He pulled out a pen and signed his name, then handed the pen to Marcus, who signed as well. We will see you tomorrow morning at the lawyer's office. 9 o'clock? 9 o'clock, Marcus agreed, though he did not look happy about it. As they left the saloon, Olivia felt like she could finally breathe again. They had done it. They had backed Marcus into a corner and forced him to negotiate fairly. It was not a complete victory, not when they were still paying $1,000 more than they should have. But it was something. That was incredible, Carter said once they were outside. He turned to her, his eyes bright with admiration and something deeper. The way you stood up to him, the way you threatened to expose his cheating Olivia, you were magnificent. I was terrified, she admitted. I kept thinking he would call our bluff and we would be left with nothing. But he did not, and now we have a real chance at getting the ranch back. Carter pulled her close, right there on the street, and kissed her. This kiss was different from the one the night before. It was fiercer, more urgent, full of relief and gratitude, and a hunger that made Olivia's knees weak. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Carter rested his forehead against hers, his hands still cupping her face. "Marry me," he said. "Not in 2 weeks, not after we have had time to think about it. Marry me now, Olivia. Today, because I do not want to spend another day without knowing that you are mine." Olivia's heart was racing. The practical part of her brain was screaming that this was too fast, too reckless. But the rest of her, the part that had felt drawn to this man from the very first moment, was saying yes. "Okay," she whispered. "Yes." Carter's smile was brilliant. "Really?" "Really!" Olivia laughed, feeling giddy and terrified and exhilarated all at once. "But we need to do it properly. I want my father there, and I want it to mean something. Then let us ride out to your father's ranch right now and ask for his blessing. And then we will come back to town and find a preacher." Carter kissed her again, quick and joyful. "I promise you, Olivia, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you do not regret this." They rode out to the Norton ranch together, pushing the horses faster than was probably wise. When they arrived, Thomas was sitting on the porch in a rocking chair, wrapped in a blanket despite the afternoon heat. He looked up in surprise as they dismounted. "Back already?" Then he saw their joined hands, the way they looked at each other, and understanding dawned on his face. "Oh, Papa, this is Carter Vaughn." Olivia pulled Carter forward, suddenly nervous. "Carter, this is my father, Thomas Norton." Thomas stood slowly, studying Carter with the critical eye of a protective father. Mr. Vaughn, sir. Carter held out his hand, and after a moment Thomas shook it. I know this is sudden, but I would like to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage. I love her, and I promise I will spend my life taking care of her. You love her already? You just met her yesterday. I know. Carter did not look away from Thomas's steady gaze. But sometimes you just know, sir, and I know that Olivia is the woman I want to spend my life with. Thomas looked at his daughter. Is this really what you want, Livy? Yes, Papa, I know it is fast, but it feels right. Olivia squeezed Carter's hand. He is a good man. I can feel it. Good men can still make bad husbands, Thomas said, but his tone was gentler now. What are your plans? Where will you live? We are buying back my family's ranch, Carter explained. It is about 10 miles west of here, near Woodruff. Good grazing land, reliable water. We will have room to expand, maybe start breeding horses professionally. And Olivia's prize money from the race will help pay off your debts here, sir, so you will not have to worry about losing this place. Thomas's eyes widened. Livy, you cannot use your winnings for that. You won that money. It should be yours. It is mine, Olivia said, and I want to use it to help you. Once Carter and I are married, we will combine our resources. We will have enough for everything. Her father was quiet for a long moment, and Olivia could see him working through the implications. Finally, he sighed. Your mother would have liked him, he said. She always had a soft spot for romantic fools willing to risk everything for love. So you will give us your blessing? On one condition. Thomas fixed Carter with a stern look. You hurt my daughter, and I will hunt you down myself, lung sickness or not. Do we understand each other? Perfectly, sir, Carter said, but I promise you, I will never give you a reason to come after me. See that you do not. Thomas's expression softened, and he reached out to pull Olivia into a careful hug. Be happy, Livy. That is all I have ever wanted for you. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you, Papa. They stayed long enough for Olivia to pack a few belongings and for Thomas to give them an old family Bible that had belonged to Olivia's mother. Then they rode back to Holbrook, arriving just as the sun was beginning to set. They found a preacher at the small church on the edge of town, a kindly older man named Reverend Mitchell, who was surprised but willing to perform the ceremony. You are sure about this? He asked, looking between them. Marriage is a sacred commitment, not something to be entered into lightly. We are sure, Olivia and Carter said at the same time, and then they looked at each other and laughed. Reverend Mitchell smiled. Well then, let us begin. The ceremony was simple and quick, conducted in the small church with only the Reverend's wife as a witness. But when Carter slipped a simple gold band onto Olivia's finger, purchased from the general store, just before it closed, and promised to love and cherish her for the rest of his days, Olivia felt like she was making the most important decision of her life. I now pronounce you husband and wife, Reverend Mitchell said. You may kiss your bride. Carter pulled Olivia close and kissed her thoroughly, and Olivia wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back with all the hope and joy and terrified excitement rushing through her. This was it. She was married to a man she had known for less than 2 days. It should have felt insane. Instead, it felt perfect. They walked out of the church into the cool evening air, and Carter turned to look at his new wife. So, Mrs. Vaughn, what would you like to do now? We should get a room at the hotel, Olivia said, feeling her cheeks heat. It is too late to ride out to either of the ranches tonight. They secured a room, and once they were inside with the door closed, the reality of what they had just done seemed to hit them both at once. They stood looking at each other, suddenly awkward, until Carter reached out and gently took Olivia's hand. We do not have to do anything you are not ready for, he said softly. I know this has all happened very fast. I know. Olivia took a breath, gathering her courage. But I am your wife now, and I want this to be a real marriage in every way. She stepped closer and kissed him, and Carter's arms came around her immediately. The kiss deepened, became more heated, and Olivia felt him lift her, carrying her to the bed. What followed was tender and passionate, two people discovering each other for the first time, and when they finally fell asleep in each other's arms, Olivia felt certain she had made the right choice. The next morning, they went to the lawyer's office where Marcus Daltrey was already waiting. The lawyer, a serious man named Howard Gaines, had prepared all the necessary paperwork. Carter and Olivia handed over $3,000. It hurt to watch that much money change hands, and in return, Carter received the deed to his family's ranch. Marcus counted the money carefully, then stood. "Pleasure doing business with you," he said, though his tone suggested it was anything but pleasurable. "I hope you enjoy your ranch, Mr. Vaughn. You paid dearly enough for it." After he left, Carter just stared at the deed in his hands. "I cannot believe it," he said quietly. "I actually got it back." "We got it back," Olivia corrected, leaning against his shoulder. "We are partners now, remember?" Carter turned and kissed her, deep and grateful. "Best partnership I have ever had." They spent the rest of the morning gathering supplies and arranging for the final details to be settled. Olivia had given her father $500 before they left his ranch, enough to pay off the most pressing debts and buy him some breathing room. It left them with about $500 to start rebuilding the Vaughn ranch, but Carter seemed confident they could make it work. That afternoon, they finally rode out to see the ranch Carter had fought so hard to reclaim. It was a beautiful piece of land, nestled in a valley with a creek running through it and views of the distant mountains. The house was a solid two-story structure built from local timber, weathered but well made. There were corrals and a barn, all showing signs of neglect from 3 months without a caretaker. "It needs work," Carter said, sounding apologetic. "But the bones are good. Give me a few weeks, and I will have it looking like home again." "It already looks like home," Olivia said, and she meant it. She could see the potential here, could imagine them building a life in this place. "Show me where your mother is buried." Carter led her to a small cemetery on a hill overlooking the valley. There were 3 graves there: Carter's mother, Sarah Vaughn, who had died 5 years earlier; his father, William Vaughn, who had passed 2 years after that; and a tiny marker for a baby sister Carter had never known, who had died before he was born. "I used to come up here and talk to them," Carter said quietly, "especially after I lost the ranch. I kept apologizing for failing them, for not protecting what they built." "You did not fail them," Olivia said fiercely. "You fought to get this place back. You did not give up, even when it seemed impossible. They would be proud of you." Carter pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything, for believing in me, for taking a chance on us." "Thank you for asking me to." They spent the rest of the day cleaning the house and making it livable. The furniture was dusty but intact, and with some hard work, they got the place looking decent. That night, they made dinner together in the small kitchen, and afterward, they sat on the porch and watched the stars come out over the Arizona desert. "I was thinking," Carter said, his arm around Olivia's shoulders, "we should start breeding horses. You have Copper, who proved she has champion bloodlines. If we can find a good stallion and start a breeding program, we could sell quality horses to the army and to other ranchers." "That sounds perfect," Olivia said. "We could also keep some cattle, diversify our income, and maybe plant some crops along the creek, where the soil is good." They talked late into the night, planning their future, and when they finally went to bed, Olivia felt a contentment she had not experienced in years. Yes, they had taken a huge risk. Yes, they barely knew each other. But lying in Carter's arms, listening to his steady heartbeat, she felt certain they had made the right choice. The next few weeks passed in a blur of hard work. Carter and Olivia threw themselves into rebuilding the ranch, repairing fences and corrals, clearing out the barn, and getting the house in proper order. Olivia rode back to her father's ranch once a week to check on him, and each time she was relieved to see him looking a little stronger, a little more like his old self. The doctor bills were paid off, and without that weight hanging over him, Thomas seemed to be recovering faster. Carter proved to be everything Olivia had hoped for in a husband. He worked hard, treated her with respect and affection, and never once made her feel like her opinions did not matter. They made decisions together, whether it was about which fence to repair first or how to spend their limited funds. At night, they talked for hours, learning each other's histories and dreams and fears. And when they made love, it was with a growing tenderness that spoke of deepening feelings. Olivia found herself falling more in love with him every day. It was not the wild, desperate attraction of those first hours, though that was still there. Instead, it was something steadier, built on mutual respect and shared goals, and the simple pleasure of working side by side toward a common future. One evening, about a month after their wedding, they were sitting on the porch watching the sunset when Carter suddenly said, "I love you." Olivia turned to look at him, surprised not by the words themselves, but by the timing. "I love you too," she said, and realized she had been waiting to say it out loud. "I think I started falling for you the moment you asked me if I was going to win that race." Carter smiled. "I think I started falling for you the moment I watched you cross that finish line. You looked so fierce and beautiful and unstoppable. I remember thinking, that is the kind of woman who could change your whole life." "And did I? Change your life?" "Completely." Carter pulled her close and kissed her. "You gave me back my home, Olivia. But more than that, you gave me a reason to care about it again. This place was just land and buildings when I lost it. But with you here, it is a home. It is a future." Tears pricked Olivia's eyes. "You gave me something too. You gave me a partner, someone who sees me as an equal, someone who believes in me. Always," Carter promised. As summer turned to fall, the ranch began to truly thrive. They purchased a strong stallion from a breeder in Show Low, and Copper was bred successfully. They also bought a small herd of cattle, using money they had saved from selling some of the horses Carter had been training. Word spread about the quality of their animals, and soon they had a steady stream of buyers coming to look at their stock. Olivia's father recovered enough to start managing his own ranch again, though he had hired a couple of ranch hands to help with the heavier work. He visited Carter and Olivia often, and Olivia could see that he approved of the life she had built with her husband. One evening in late October, Olivia realized she had missed her monthly courses. She waited another week to be sure, and then she told Carter. "I think I am pregnant," she said, and she watched his face transform with joy. "Really? Are you sure?" "Pretty sure. We should probably have a doctor confirm it, but all the signs are there." Olivia was grinning now, caught up in his excitement. "We are going to have a baby, Carter." He swept her up and spun her around, laughing. "We are going to have a baby." "Olivia, this is incredible. This is perfect." That winter was cold but joyful. Olivia's pregnancy progressed smoothly, and Carter was attentive to the point of being overprotective. He would not let her lift anything heavy or work too hard, and he spent hours building a cradle for the baby in the workshop he had set up in the barn. The baby was born in early spring of 1883, a healthy boy with dark hair and his father's blue eyes. They named him William, after Carter's father, and the moment Olivia held him for the first time, she felt like her life had come full circle. She had taken such a huge risk marrying Carter after knowing him for less than 2 days, but that risk had given her everything she never knew she wanted. Carter was a devoted father, taking to the role naturally. He would walk the floor with William when the baby cried at night, singing old cowboy songs in his rough voice until the infant fell asleep. He talked to his son constantly, telling him about the ranch and the horses and the future they were building together. "He is too young to understand any of that," Olivia said one afternoon, watching Carter hold William while explaining the finer points of breaking a horse. "He will understand someday," Carter said. "And when he does, I want him to know that this place is his legacy, that his mother and I built it for him." As William grew from an infant to a toddler, The ranch continued to prosper. The breeding program was successful, and they were selling horses to army forts all over the territory. They expanded their cattle herd and built a second barn to house all the animals. Carter hired a couple of ranch hands to help with the work, and Olivia found herself taking on more of the business side of things, handling accounts and negotiating sales. When William was 2 years old, Olivia became pregnant again. This time, she gave birth to a daughter with honey-colored hair and green eyes. They named her Sarah, after Carter's mother, and Carter cried when he held her for the first time. "Two children," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "5 years ago, I had nothing. I was working odd jobs and sleeping in barns and thinking I would never get my life back. And now I have a wife I love, two beautiful children, and a thriving ranch. How did I get so lucky?" "We both got lucky," Olivia corrected. "I was desperate and scared, convinced I was going to lose everything that mattered. And then you walked into my life and gave me hope. You gave me a future." They stood together, each holding one of their children, looking out over the land they had worked so hard to build. The sun was setting over the Arizona desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. Years passed, and the Vaughn Ranch became one of the most successful operations in the territory. William grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved working with the horses. Sarah was wild and fearless, always climbing trees and exploring the creek, despite Olivia's warnings to be careful. When William was 8 and Sarah was 6, Olivia gave birth to another son, whom they named Thomas after her father. By then, the ranch was successful enough that they could afford to send William to a proper school in town, though he always came home on weekends to help with the ranch work. Thomas Norton lived to see all 3 of his grandchildren born. He passed away peacefully in his sleep when Thomas was just a baby, and they buried him next to Olivia's mother on his ranch. It was hard for Olivia to lose him, but she took comfort in knowing that he had spent his final years watching her build a happy life with Carter. More years passed. The children grew older, and the ranch grew larger. Carter and Olivia added more land, more cattle, more horses. They became pillars of the community, known for their fair dealing and the quality of their stock. People often asked Olivia how she had known Carter was the right man to marry after knowing him for such a short time. "I did not know," she always answered honestly. "I just trusted my instincts and took a leap of faith, and I got lucky that he turned out to be exactly who I hoped he was." But it was not just luck, she knew. It was also work. She and Carter had spent years learning each other, supporting each other, choosing each other every single day. They had disagreements, as all couples did, but they always talked through them. They had challenges, financial and otherwise, but they always faced them together. When Olivia was in her 40s, she sometimes thought back to that day at the racing fair. She would remember the feel of copper beneath her, the thunder of hooves, the moment she crossed the finish line. She would remember Carter standing by the fence, watching her with those intense blue eyes. She would remember the crazy, impulsive decision to marry a man she barely knew. And she would smile, because that crazy, impulsive decision had given her the most incredible life she could have imagined. One evening, when they were both in their 50s and the children were grown with families of their own, Carter and Olivia sat on their porch watching the sunset. It was the same porch where they had shared so many conversations over the years, where they had made plans and solved problems and simply enjoyed being together. "Do you ever regret it?" Carter asked suddenly. "Marrying me so quickly? Taking such a huge risk?" Olivia looked at her husband, at the silver in his dark hair and the lines around his eyes that came from years of smiling. She thought about the life they had built together, the children they had raised, the love that had grown deeper with every passing year. "Not for a single moment," she said. "You are the best bet I ever made." Carter Vaughn. He laughed and pulled her close, and they sat together as the sun dipped below the horizon. William and his wife lived on the ranch now, running the day-to-day operations with help from their own children. Sarah had married a lawyer in town and was raising 4 rambunctious kids. Young Thomas was working as a horse trainer for the Army, traveling all over the Southwest. We did good, Carter said quietly, with the kids with the ranch. We really did good. We did, Olivia agreed. We built something that will last long after we are gone. They stayed on the porch until the stars came out, counting their blessings and remembering their journey. From a desperate race at a county fair, to a wedding after 2 days, to a lifetime of love and partnership. It had not always been easy, but it had always been worth it. And when they finally went inside for the night, walking hand in hand through the house they had made into a home, Olivia felt the same certainty she had felt all those years ago when she said yes to Carter's proposal. Some risks were worth taking. Some people were worth believing in. And some love stories started fast and burned bright and never stopped burning for as long as both people drew breath. The Vaughn Ranch continued to thrive for generations. William's children and grandchildren kept the breeding program going, maintaining the family's reputation for quality horses. The land that Carter had fought so hard to reclaim remained in the Vaughn family, passed down from parent to child, a testament to what could be built when two people took a chance on each other. And sometimes, when William's grandchildren complained about something being too risky or too fast, he would tell them the story of how their great-grandparents met and married in less than 2 days. He would tell them about the race that changed everything, about the cowboy who bet on the right woman and won back his future. Love is always a gamble, he would say, echoing words his own father had once told him. But when you find the right person, it is the best bet you will ever make. Carter and Olivia lived long, full lives surrounded by family and love. They passed away within months of each other, both in their 80s, and were buried on the hill beside Carter's parents. At their funeral, more than 200 people came to pay their respects, testament to the impact they had made on their community. Their story became the stuff of local legend, the woman who beat every man at the racing fair and the cowboy who bet everything on her and won back his ranch. But more than that, it became a love story that inspired generations, a reminder that sometimes the most important decisions are made in a heartbeat and that taking a risk on love can lead to the greatest rewards of all. The ranch still stands today, more than 140 years later, still in the Vaughn family. And on that hill where Carter and Olivia are buried, their great-great-great-grandchildren sometimes visit, reading the simple inscription on their shared headstone. She gave him hope. He gave her love. Together, they built a legacy that will never fade. It was a fitting epitaph for two people who had taken the biggest gamble of their lives and won everything that mattered. And though the world had changed dramatically since those Wild West days of 1882, the truth at the heart of their story remained constant. True love is worth fighting for, worth risking everything for, worth believing in even when it seems impossible. Carter and Olivia Vaughn had proved that, and their descendants carried that lesson forward into each new generation, keeping alive the memory of a race, a bet, and a love that changed the course of countless lives.